Hiya! I'm back from my vacation. And I'm here. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna yap. I'm gonna yap a lot. So this video I'm gonna try and focus on raid stuff specifically. I'm gonna have another video focused on Mythic Plus stuff. And I have notes all over the place. I got Sims to talk about. I got Sims over here to talk about, bugs, all the fun stuff. We're going to go over everything. I'm going to put chapters in the description. We're going to do a big video. We're going to have everything talked about, all that fun stuff. Let's get into it. All right. So, starting from the raw basics. It's your first time playing Assassination. What the hell is going on? Alrighty. So, some passives to go over. First off, Venomous Wounds here. You gain energy each time your Garrote or Rupture deal damage to a poison target. This means you always want Garrote, you'll always want Rupture. And if there's multiple targets, spreading this is really good, right? You want to spread your bleeds. Secondly, Seal Fate. Crits give us extra combo points, so this is where a lot of our combo point generation will come from. Our main generator in single target is Mutilate. It hits twice, which means that it has 2 chances to proc Seal Fate. So it awards 2 combo points baseline. Each hit can crit for an additional combo point. So typically you're going to be getting 3, sometimes you're going to be getting 4, right? Those are kind of the passives you need to know about. Then we have some cooldowns we need to talk about. So first off, Shiv, which is at the top here, right? It gets a buff through various talents. First off, Improved Shiv. This is the bread and butter of Assassination. Everything falls under Improved Shiv. It increases your nature damage done to the target by 30%. So main sources of damage for this, Kingsbane. This is our big 1-minute cooldown. It is a damage over time effect that ramps up over time, deals nature damage. So you want to have Shiv going during Kingsbane so that it can buff the Kingsbane damage. Our main filler spender, at the bottom right there, you can see the tooltip, Envenom. Also does instant nature damage and increases poison application chance. Poisons also nature damage. So being able to spend Envenoms during Shiv, big stuff. Those are kind of the main rotational things. Then we have our big 2-minute cooldown that builds on top of that. Deathmark duplicates your Garrote, Rupture, and Lethal Poisons. So you get all of the benefits of those twice, right? It puts a fresh debuff on, all the fun stuff. And obviously, if you have more poisons, that means that your Kingsbane is ramping harder. If your Kingsbane's ramping harder, it means it gets to its maximum earlier, does more damage, yada yada. Venomous Wounds, if you have 2 Garrotes or 2 Ruptures, you're getting more energy, right? All of that fun stuff. You're just getting bonuses on bonuses on bonuses. All of this duplication also gets buffed through Lethal Dose. This is just a straight passive, but your poisons, nature damage over time, bleed abilities deal more damage for each one of those effects on them. So your Kingsbane gets buffed if you have Garrote on the target, if you have Rupture on the target, if you have poisons on the target. Deathmark duplicating all of these increases the effect of Lethal Dose, which then buffs your Kingsbane again. You have this big cycle going on where you need to maintain your debuffs, and then you go into a 1-minute cooldown phase with Shiv buffing your Kingsbane, your poisons buffing your Kingsbane, and then every 2 minutes you duplicate the effects, which then makes everything bigger. Now, to note, Kingsbane, while it says it injects a lethal poison or releases a lethal poison, it does not get duplicated by Deathmark. And this is where we need to start talking about some terms, right? So, when we talk about bleeds, usually it'll specify, like here, Garrote or Rupture. Crimson Tempest also counts as a bleed. Internal Bleeding adds an additional bleed. This counts as a bleed. Doomblade, this also counts as a bleed. All of these things count as bleeds. And then with poisons, it gets a little bit trickier. So there's lethal poisons, weapon poisons, and poisons. The difference there is small but nuanced. So here, for example, it says lethal poisons. Now, lethal poisons are poisons that you apply to your character. So, for example, instant poison here says coats your weapons with a lethal poison. Same with wound poison, it is a lethal poison. Deadly poison is a lethal poison. Amplifying poison is a lethal poison. So it'll duplicate your lethal poisons, which are one of these 4. Now, if it says weapon poisons, like on lethal dose, it says your weapon poisons. Weapon poisons also include your non-lethals. So here you have crippling poison, which is a non-lethal, atrophic poison, which is a non-lethal, and if you talent into it, right, instead of atrophic, you have numbing. This is also a non-lethal. Normally, you're only allowed to have 1 lethal and 1 non-lethal. However, we do talent into Dragon Tempered Blades, which makes it 2 lethals and 2 non-lethals. Some people also get confused by the less application chance here. The rule is that if you're adding application chance and then less application chance, it applies to everything. It doesn't apply to any specific one. The order doesn't matter here. Like, it doesn't matter if I put deadly on first and then amplifying. This 30% less application chance is on every lethal and non-lethal poison. It's just a straight 30% less multiplier. So no worries there. You don't have to micromanage anything. It just allows you to run a second poison. So with that out of the way, some auxiliary things we need to talk about. Over on the class tree, there are 2 options depending on if you play Deathstalker or Fatebound. For Deathstalker, you're going to be playing Echoing Reprimand. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Echoing Reprimand is a 45-second cooldown. You're going to want to cast it on cooldown. And you'll see my combo points light up in some interesting colors. So normally, my combo points are just standard red. If I use Echoing Reprimand, you'll see that one of these just lit up blue. And this can be either 3, 4, or 5. One of these slots. Now, if I use a finisher on this slot, it will consume the blue combo point, and then the finisher will count as if it were 7. So if I were to build to 7, this would be the same thing, right? And now I need to build back up. I'm not on the blue combo point, so it doesn't use it. But eventually, I will hit this blue combo point. And so now if I use a finisher, this is going to be a big 7 combo point finisher. That's the basic gameplay. You don't need to micromanage it at all. If you land on your blue combo point, you're good to go. You just use your finisher and you move on. If you don't land on it, that's fine. You just continue as normal, right? Nothing much to it. Deathstalker in general will also play Resounding Clarity sometimes. This will make it so that Echoing Reprimand always empowers your 3rd, 4th, and 5th combo point. So again, if I just hit Echoing Reprimand here, you'll see the slots are 3, 4, and 5. So I use 3, and I'm just doing my rotation. I use 4, and I skipped over it. That's fine. I just use a finisher. And now I land on 5, I use a finisher, and I'm good to go. I've used all 3, and I'm just waiting for Echoing Reprimand to come back up. All right? Just a little mini game to do. And now I need to run away because Bone Spike will keep us in combat. Just 1 second. Oh my gosh, please. All right. For Fatebound, you won't be playing Echoing Reprimand, you'll be playing Cold Blood instead. Now, there is a sort of back and forth on how Cold Blood should be used. And I'll talk about that more when I talk about Fatebound Bugs. In general, if you want just a lazy option, macro it into your Envenom. So you want to Cold Blood, Envenom in that macro, in that order. And that's good enough for 90% of situations, unless you're super min-maxing. So let's put that all together. You guys already saw a little bit, but let's put it all together, right? So our opener, we have some stealth stuff. I'm just going to search stealth. You can see a couple talents here. So we have improved Garrote. Garrote deals damage from stealth, so we're going to cast it from stealth. So the basic gameplay without hero talents, I'm going to ignore Deathstalker for now, is we want to Garrote your target from stealth. You want to get up Slice and Dice. Once you get up Slice and Dice, you then want to get up your Rupture. And then you're going into Envenom, Deathmark, Kingsbane, Shiv, right? You're pressing your cooldowns, you're stacking them all together. And then you're on your way, right? This is the end of your opener, pretty much. You need to Shiv for the end of Kingsbane, obviously. But that's sort of the raw basics. And then after that, you're just maintaining Envenom, you're just maintaining all your dots, making sure Garrote and Rupture doesn't drop, and then you're just using Envenom. I didn't have poisons on, but you know, you get the point. It's whatever. So, let's talk about some more specific Deathstalker stuff. And then we'll go over Fatebound. So Deathstalker, the main gameplay is Deathstalker's Mark and the accompanying capstone Darkest Night. Now, this is a completed gameplay loop between these two talents. All the talents in the middle don't really matter for the sake of the gameplay, but we just need to talk about Deathstalker's Mark and Darkest Night first. So, big block of text, what does it do? It applies 3 stacks of Deathstalker's Mark to your target when you use Ambush from Stealth. Right? So you get a debuff, it has 3 stacks. Every time you use a finisher on it with 5 or more combo points, you take a stack of that mark away, and then once all of the stacks are gone, you get the capstone, Darkest Night. Now this gives you energy, and your next Envenom cast with maximum combo points is guaranteed to critically strike, deal additional damage, and apply the mark again. So, if I just go onto this target, I need to ambush from stealth in order to apply the mark in the first place. Right, that's why I have this big icon. I'm gonna ambush, and then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna get all my my slice and dice, all my dots, and now we're just in the rotation, right? And you'll see that as I'm using my finishers, I now have the capstone for consuming 3 stacks. I build to my maximum combo points, right? Because Darkest Night requires maximum combo points, and then if I use a big Envenom, I get 3 stacks back, and the rotation just loops from there, right? So, just using finishers. I'm on the last stack, 5 or more combo points, use a finisher, I get the capstone again, so now I build back up to max, and I just use another one, I get the marks back, right? Over and over and over, same loop, over and over and over. Every 3 or 4 finishers, you're gonna get the capstone, you're gonna apply the mark, get rid of it, reapply it, over and over and over. And that's the loop that you get with Deathstalker. That is the entire gameplay. There are min-maxes to this, which we'll cover, but for the most part, that is it, right? Now, the main thing to keep in mind with the mark is that it is limits to 1, so you can only have 1 mark to target, and you can't just transfer it. So if I ambush this target, in this case it does transfer, but if I use an ambush from like blindside, for example, right, it's not from stealth, so I can't transfer this. So if I just target swap, I'm not able to get this back up, right? So you have to be careful a little bit to make sure that you don't lose your mark. Now, in the case where you want to transfer your mark and you don't have your stealth ambush, you can get the capstone and then go over and then reapply it to a different target, right? The neat thing about doing that is you get the capstone when the target dies. So if a target dies, this dummy, for example, with the mark attached, you will get your capstone. So you will be able to reapply the mark. It won't break. That is especially important in Mythic Plus, which I'll cover in the other video. But that is about it in terms of Deathstalker. I'm gonna remove the bone spikes again, and then we'll talk about some more min-maxy stuff. But if you're basically just trying to get your feet wet into Assassination, this is all you really need. And the rotation itself, very simple. You're trying to use your combo points on Envenom. You're trying to get the mark up, build it down, get the capstone, apply it again, build it down, right? Break it down, build it back up. Very simple. So, the min-max stuff. Now, if you are familiar with Assassination and you played it for a while in Season 3, you might be noticing some oddities with the talent page here. What you're used to probably looks something like this. There's some min-maxing, though, that occurs here. because Sanguine Blades is really weak and the entire tree revolves around Envenom damage, we can actually drop this and take Vicious Venoms instead, which gives us a bunch more Mutilate damage. Additionally, Bleeds being weak, especially in single target, we want more energy for more Envenoms, so Tiny Toxic is within margin. So you can play either one of these. I think in general, people will prefer Tiny Toxic Blade in raw single target just because it feels faster. And Assassination being slow is a bit of a gripe with people, right? So that's why this looks a little bit weird. But you don't have to worry about Sanguine Blades at all when you take Vicious Venom, so that removes another thought process that you need to keep track of in your head. And you just play around this normally. You're playing for Envenom uptime, right? Envenom has a 6-second duration at 6 combo points. At 7 seconds, at 7 combo points, at 7 seconds. So you're just playing for the uptime there and making sure you're getting your capstone procs. Very easy. The other min-max that happens when you don't take Vicious Venoms is that Clear the Witnesses, when you apply Deathstalker's Mark, your next Fan of Knives deals additional plague damage, generates an additional combo point. This is actually worth using if you aren't running Vicious Venom. So if you're running a traditional build, right, like something like this maybe, right? Something a little bit more traditional, this is fine to play. This is totally okay. This isn't like hyper min-maxed or whatever, but it's within 1%. Like this is very close, and especially if you're bleeding multiple targets, this might actually be better, right? But if you aren't playing Vicious Venoms, your Ambush and your Mutilate don't deal more damage, and so it becomes worth it to press Fan of Knives instead of the Mutilate. Which is another benefit, to me personally at least, to run Vicious Venoms. Sorry. Because I don't like pressing Fan of Knives in single target. With Vicious Venoms, I don't have to, because the Mutilate is just better, right? But in the case where you don't run Vicious Venoms, Clear the Witnesses, Fan of Knives, single target, replacing a Mutilate as you need. Some of these other talents are very passive, so hunt them down. It's just auto attack damage, you don't need to worry about it. Fatal Intent, this is Ink Pod from Eternal Palace in Battle for Azeroth. But while this is buffed by Shiv, it doesn't seem worth it to hold a Shiv for it. It's kind of still very weak. Doesn't really do a lot of damage. So this just kind of exists. Don't worry about it. Corrupt the Blood. Now this does make Rupture duration go up by 3 seconds baseline. The Pandemic timer goes up with it because Rupture duration is Pandemic duration, right? Pandemic is 30%. So this makes all of your Pandemic timers go up by a second. Not really worth playing around, not really worth mentioning. If it's in Pandemic, just send it. If it isn't, don't, because then you're wasting Rupture uptime. This Choice Node, Symbolic Victory, looks like it could be okay, except that this blows really hard because it's only the first Envenom. So you get 1 Envenom every 30 seconds, roughly, because Shiv is a 30-second cooldown. So this sucks. This sucks really bad, and it's about half as good as Lingering Darkness. The issue with Lingering Darkness is that it does smooth out our damage a lot. So our burst is lower because this exists. 30 seconds of 30% increased nature damage is basically like having improved Shiv up for 30 seconds. So this is really strong. And you will be playing this everywhere. This is a go-to talent all the time, forever. The next one, final talent that does damage, Momentum of Despair, and Follow the Blood. Follow the Blood makes your Fan of Knives, and it says Black Powder. That's a tooltip bug. It's actually Crimson Tempest. But it makes Crimson Tempest deal additional damage while 3 more enemies are afflicted with Rupture. This is purely AoE, but even in AoE, this is better. Momentum Despair is just straight up better. Because critically striking with Fan of Knives and Crimson Tempest, again, this says Black Powder, it's supposed to be Crimson Tempest. It increases their crit strike chance, which is, again, more Seal Fate procs, more combo points, and their crit strike damage by 32%. That's a big number, but remember, you're not critting that often, right? You're only critting 30% at the time, so this is like roughly a 10% damage increase. So, Momentum of Despair, just straight up better than Follow the Blood. You take it everywhere, permanently, don't worry about it. Then you have the utility choice node of Shadewalker versus Shroud of Night. Shroud of Night can be very niche. If you need the Shroud timer, in general, you'd play Shadewalker. I don't know why I'm not. But Shadewalker is just more Shadow Step, right? Which is always kind of fine. The defensive node, these are both good. However, Ethereal Cloak needs a situation where this is good. It requires a situation where those 2 seconds are gonna be worth it. So either you can like soak for longer, or you can eat 2 debuffs with it, or whatever the situation may be. It's like a really long channel that the boss is doing. Something like that, where this is going to be important. Outside of those niche situations, Bait and Switch is crazy good. It makes evasion a pretty strong cooldown defensively in raids. There's a lot of magic damage stuff where, like, boss does a big roar and it's magic damage, or there's like a puddle that you need to soak, or there's a debuff that hits you. Something to that extent, and most of those are going to be magic damage. So having an evasion is just an extra tool, right? Normally you wouldn't use evasion unless you're playing elusiveness, but this makes evasion just straight up good all the time. And this gives you another tool to reduce damage. Cloak of Shadows reducing fizz damage taken, kind of more situational. You would still want to hold Cloak for debuffs and stuff of the sort, but if you really need the fizz reduction, Cloak of Shadows also can be used. In general, if you need that sort of reduction, you would play Elusiveness, and then Feint would be your main kind of reduction in that regard, right? Because typically if you're taking fizz damage, it's not going to be single target, it's going to be AoE, which means Feint works on it. But that's the tree for Deathstalker. Singular Focus, it's good, but it's only good in Mythic Plus. In raids, this is sort of kind of weak. And there's no fight where you can really make use of it. I'm trying to think. Bloodbound Horror, you do go down, you do hit a bunch of enemies, but you're going to be focusing those down. And so if you're focusing them down, you're going to reapply the mark onto the ads, which then makes Singular Focus it doesn't give you more boss damage, right? Because it's only on the marked target. So in that regard, you're not really seeing that much. There are ads on Rashanan, but those die really quickly. Brood Twister Ovanax, you might see Singular Focus go kind of hard, depending on how much you can ignore the ads as the rogue. If you can just pound the boss on Ovanax and just let Singular Focus do work, especially if you're taking like Crimson Tempest or something, Singular Focus will be good. But if you have to swap to ads and you have to single target them down, again, it's not that great, right? And then the rest of this is kind of whatever. So those are kind of the 3 bosses where this might be good. But it's mostly a Mythic Plus thing, right? So no need to worry about that. Let me check a couple of min-max things, see if I missed something, if I've talked about it all. There's a lot of information I need to get through, so sorry that I need to double check here. I need to make sure I have not forgotten anything. Yes, okay. So with that, let's move on to opener time. So I have a couple openers here. This top one is if you don't have Vicious Venoms, right? You see the Fan of Knives to consume the Clear the Witnesses proc, and then you have the bottom here with Vicious Venoms. So we always need to open and single target with the ambush in order to apply the mark. Then we have Improved Garrote, right? In order to get the Garrote up, we get the Rupture up. Bone Spike procs, which gives us a couple of combo points. That's all we need in order to get Slice and Dice up. And then we have all of our maintenance buffs up, right? So we have the Mark, Garrote, Rupture, and Slice and Dice. Those are our main maintenance buffs we need to worry about as Deathstalker. and then we can go into cooldowns. So we have Echoing Reprimand, we consume the Clear the Witnesses proc, Envenom, and then we go into our stock standard Deathmark window. So Deathmark window is always Trinkets, Potions, Shiv, Kingsbane, layer them all together, let them do work, start spamming Envenom, right? As you're spamming Envenom during Shiv, right, during Deathmark, you're doing a bunch of damage. You have Amplifying Poison being duplicated, big stuff. I've noted that you proc and apply on these Envenoms. So the thing to note here, you don't have to do exactly this order, right? After the Kingsbane, you can kind of do whatever you want. The first half here is what's important because you're getting up all of your bleeds, all of your maintenance, and then going into your cooldowns. After that, this is kind of already your main rotation. The main thing to note is you have a Shiv here and a Shiv here. These are spread out so that it covers the whole Kingsbane and it covers Deathmark in order to make sure you're doing damage through that. And if you ever get the Capstone proc, you need to remember that you need to go until maximum combo points, right? You need to be at your maximum in order to use the Capstone. So in this case, I've noted that with a Mutilate followed by Improved Garrote, followed by a Mutilate. This refreshes the first one, obviously. And this will get you to 7 every time because this is 2 + 3 + 2. So this is 7 combo points, but if you don't want to do it this way, it's perfectly fine. Or if you, like, for example, mess it up somewhere and this is a 3 combo point Envenom, right? I don't know how that would be possible, but let's just say it's a 3 combo point Envenom. And you proc the Capstone here. You would just need to make sure that your next Envenom is 7 combo points, right? So that's kind of a thing that changes a little bit if you make a mistake, if you skip a part, whatever the situation is. You just need to make sure use your Capstone with 7 combo points in order to reapply the mark. This is the biggest thing that you can do for Deathstalker. You always want to have the mark up. You want to be using the Capstone in order to reapply the mark and then break it back down. So big thing there. Obviously, you can see the same thing here, but with Vicious Venoms, we don't Fan of Knives. So we just skip it and go straight into it. Opener is basically the same thing, right? You're getting up your maintenance, you're getting up your Envenom, Deathmark, cooldowns, and then you're spamming Envenom, right? It looks a lot more complicated than it is. Really, it's just 3-step process. Always get up maintenance, press your cooldowns, spam Envenom. That's your opener. You'll see, though, that Echoing Reprimand is straight into an Envenom here. There's a little bit of jank we need to talk about, and this is sort of where we're getting into the Deathstalker bugs. So, main bug with Deathstalker is this says when you spend 5 or more combo points on attacks against a marked target, you consume an application of Deathstalker's mark. Echoing Reprimand says damaging finishing moves that consume the same number of combo points as your anima charge function as if they consumed 7 combo points. But you'll quickly find that this has not been fixed. So right now, right, we're at 2. If I were to cast this, we're still at 2. Even though I spent 4 combo points and I consumed the Echoing Reprimand combo point, right, we're still at 2. Here again, this one should count as a 7 combo point Envenom. So we press Envenom, it's still at 2. That bug is really annoying, and it kind of really hampers the value of Deathstalker in that regard. So in the opener, I'm assuming that it works. I'm assuming that the bug gets fixed. I also do this later on with Fatebound. I assume that a bug gets fixed, but just know that, you know, there might be some sequencing changes that happen as a result of bugs getting fixed. I can't account for every bug all the time, always, so yeah, sorry. But again, maintenance, cooldowns, Envenom. The rest of it, I don't really care. So let's move on, talk about get away from Deathstalker, talk about Fatebound. Fatebound is way more passive, way less to talk about, but we do have to talk about some more bugs. So for Fatebound, we're always going to be playing Cold Blood and Inevitability. Right now, this is the only option that you have. And unlike with Deathstalker, there is a lot less focus on Envenom. And so because there's less focus on Envenom, you will be playing different talents in single target. So instead of Vicious Venoms, we're going back to the bleed stuff. Instead of Rapid Injection, which is a little bit weak, we're actually playing Master Assassin. You don't play around Master Assassin at all. This just exists. This only just passively exists. You don't need to do anything special. But because Rapid Injection kind of sucks because our Envenoms suck, we don't need to play this. Additionally, we don't really care about the energy that much, so we're going back to something more standard like this, where this energy doesn't matter, this energy doesn't matter. We don't play these simply because where Deathstalker is trying to spend the mark, reapply it, Envenom as much as possible. Fatebound's a little bit more chill, and the damage comes from the coin itself rather than the Envenoms. So this is kind of the standard single target build you'd be playing. So let's talk about the coins. The main thing is when you consume 5 or more combo points on a finisher, you flip a coin. It's either heads or tails. The heads coin will increase all damage you deal. The tails coin will just deal flat damage. Now this flat damage is cosmic damage, so that includes nature and it's buffed by everything. So if you're playing Caustic Spatter, for example, this will splash the damage of the coin. It is affected by our mastery, all of that fun stuff. It is affected by Shiv. So you can think of it basically as just a nature damage hit. And my nose itches so bad, bro. What is happening? Good lord. Now, Fatebound is a coin flip. It is RNG, but we do have some tools in order to make the coin flip a little less RNG and weight it in our favor. So the first one, Mean Streak. If you have a coin that's flipped by Envenom, it is more likely to match the same face as the last flip. So let's say you have 2 tails and you then Envenom, right? You have a 33% more likely chance to then match the tails flip that you already have. That's around 16%. So instead of a 50-50, it's now a 66-33. All right, so you have a 2 in 3 chance to match the same flip, which helps a lot. Additionally, you have a couple of stuff here, like Double Jeopardy. After stealth, your first coin flip flips 2 coins. And for your cooldown, Death Mark causes the coin flip to land on its edge for both heads and tails. So if we just take a look, I think I'm tracking them. I should be tracking them at least. Yeah, so we see we have 1 heads coin here, and now we have 1 tails coin. Now the way the edge case works is if I death mark here and then edge case procs, I get 3 and 1. So it's not its own proc. It is an either. It gives you both at the same time, right? So landing on the edge isn't a particular flip that's special. It's just both. Now, the last thing that we can do in order to manipulate the coins is Inevitability as well as Destiny Defined. Destiny Defined sucks, but we can go over it real quick. It's just a little bit of poison application chance, and your coins flipped have, again, an additional chance to match the same face as the last flip. It's very passive, doesn't do anything, it just gives you a little bit more chance to flip coins correctly. Inevitability makes us play Cold Blood. Again, you can macro this into Envenom, especially because Inevitability only makes Cold Blood apply to Envenom. However, Fatebound coins flipped by Envenom that is buffed by Cold Blood matches the same face as the last flip. So if you Cold Blood, you Envenom, it guarantees every time that it matches the same face as the last flip. So if you have a big chain of tails and your your Cold Blood comes off cooldown, you press it, now your Envenom is going to match the flip. So that's pretty cool. The only problem with this is, again, bugs, but we'll get back to that later. The last couple of things are just kind of passives that you don't really need to worry about. Deal Fate. Mutilate, Ambush, Fan of Knives generate 1 additional combo point when they trigger Seal Fate. Now this is limit 1 per cast, so although Mutilate hits twice, if both hands crit, you still only get 1 combo point. You're not getting 2 additional combo points from Deal Fate. So instead of 3 combo points, you'd be getting 4, right? Because 1 hand crits, you'd be getting Deal Fate, additional combo point. So that's 4. If both hands crit, instead of 4, you're getting 5. You're not getting 6. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is 1 additional combo point per cast, not per crit. The last one, a couple here, Deliver Doom, that's just more damage if you're in single target. Fate Intertwined duplicates Envenom crit damage. It cleaves if there's nearby enemies, but if there aren't, it just does single target damage instead. Now this is crit damage, so you need to crit in order for this damage to proc. Obviously, if you have a 30% crit chance, you're duplicating 30%. Numbers are a little bit inflated because it's attached to crit damage, right? So this isn't 30% additional Envenom damage, this is around 10% additional Envenom damage. All right. Last one to talk about, Fateful Ending. When you flip for the 7th time in a row, you get a bunch of agility, and if you flip it again, it deals a little bit of cosmic damage. So this can be either 7 heads or 7 tails, doesn't matter, it just has to be in a row. This just plays itself, you can't really do much. There are some niche situations where you're on 5 combo points and you should vanish in order to flip 2 coins and hope that you get to 7. This kind of happens in your opener sometimes if you're a little slow or if you're doing an AoE opener especially. But in single target, you won't really be encountering this much. So, yeah. Aside from that, you might be able to tell cooldowns here play the same, right? There's no change to your cooldowns. There's no change to your Envenom. There's no change to your Rupture. It's just the coin. All of these things are just the coin, which means Fatebound is entirely passive, and we don't actually change our rotation much in order to account for it. The only thing to note is that if you are not running Rapid Injection, you want to be... this is where it gets complicated. You want to be above 50% for Sanguine Blades, but you want to prioritize your Envenom uptime over that. So what do I mean by that? Your Envenom uptime is important because you're applying poisons, regardless of Rapid Injection or not, right? You don't need to clip it, but you do want to have a really high uptime on the Envenom buff. So as you're Envenoming, you might happen to be above 50% a couple of times, right? Because it is a 6 to 7 seconds long buff, and while you're waiting, you will go above 50%. That's perfectly fine, but you should be going under 50% in order to maintain the Envenom debuff. If at any point you just start starving out and whatever, you can reset back to like 70, 75%, and then keep Envenoming. So you'll have these points of downtime where you're kind of getting your energy back. But in general, if you just play for Envenom uptime, you're good to go. So as an example here, I'm going to try and starve myself pretty hard. I might drop Rupture just to starve myself. But you'll see here, I'm just flipping coins, right? And I'm playing for Envenom uptime at this point, right? So this is like mid-rotation. I'm playing for Envenom uptime. I'm waiting until Envenom goes low. And I'm going to press Envenom. And so here I'm just playing for Envenom uptime again, right? I'm waiting until it goes low. I'm playing the uptime. And I'm not really caring about Sanguine Blades much in this case. Right, if I go above, it's fine. If I don't go above, it's also fine. So here I'm below, that's fine. I'm just going. And so here I'm starting to get really low on energy, right? This happens in really long fights. So here I'm not able to sustain the Envenom buff. So here I can reset back. So I would just be sitting here waiting. I would build my combo points first, obviously. Then I'd be sitting here waiting. And eventually we'd get back up to a certain level and we can continue, right? And now we're just playing for uptime again. The main thing to note here is you don't want to pool too high. If you pool to like 250, for example, you end up in a situation where you could possibly overcap energy or clip the Envenom buff. So here, if I pool to 250 and I Envenom, and now I need to wait, right? You'll see my ambush procced. I'm waiting, and it's very close. I'm almost overcapping. So keep an eye on that. I would generally go to like 200-ish. 210 is perfectly fine. You don't need to go higher than that. But main thing, just focus on Envenom uptime. Don't need to worry about Sanguine too much, and you're good to go. So let's go over opener stuff, and then let's go over bugs. So I have many visuals here, and this is kind of a problem. There are two main bugs that are affecting Fatebound. The first of which is that vanishing for double jeopardy, this talent, right? Vanishing for double jeopardy, if you have edge case, means you flip both coins on their edge. Now, we don't think that that's what's supposed to happen. I'll show you what that looks like. So I press death mark, I have edge case, right? And now if I vanish and Envenom, I get 2 on their edge. That's really weird and shouldn't really happen because inevitability doesn't work with it. So if I were to cold blood right now, I wouldn't flip a coin, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so this doesn't flip a coin. Why would that happen? Well, it landed on its edge, right? So you get both heads and tails. Inevitability says that it guarantees to match the same face as the last flip. But this edge case isn't a matchable flip, right? It's not heads or tails, it's both. So cold blood cannot match anything. Like it lands on its edge, it doesn't match, it just poofs. You just waste it. But at the same time, double jeopardy matches the same face as the first flip from stealth, which in this case would be edge case. So double jeopardy can match an edge case, but inevitability can't, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's a bunch of ways that this could happen and this could get fixed. So for right now, you don't want to cold blood after a flip of edge case, right? So in this case, I'm assuming that the vanish gets fixed and doesn't match the edge case, and I'm assuming that inevitability will match the previous flip, which is a little bit of a convoluted way. I think this is what it's supposed to do. So in this case, the cold blood here would double flip whatever this Envenom cast. So this Envenom cast, let's say this one is tails. This next one is edge case. So this inevitability will match the tails of this one and double flip. So this is kind of the idea I have in my head of how it should work, but it's very strange. There's a million ways that they could fix this. So this is just standard opener. Again, we don't have Echoing Reprimand, so it's just stock standard. Just like Deathstalker, get your maintenance up, get your Envenom up, cooldowns, Envenom spam, right? The only variable here is where are we vanishing and where are we using cold blood. So I've also made this visual, which is the way that it currently works. So currently, with all the bugs in place the way they are, you would want to do something like this, where this Envenom flips whatever, right? Let's call it tails. You then edge case vanish into an Envenom. So this now double flips the edge case. You still get the improved growth, remember, because this is a 6-second timer, so it's more than fine. And then you cold blood after this Envenom, right? Because this Envenom is edge cased. So if you cold blood here, this Envenom would poof. You would lose 1 stack of inevitability because it doesn't flip a coin. So we need to reset our flip by Envenoming once, getting a flip that isn't an edge case, and then pressing cold blood into the Envenom. So this is what you would play right now with all of the bugs. But I don't know. I will fix this as the bugs get fixed, but I am very lost on what the intention is. Vanishing here generally is safe. You can vanish here as well if you'd like in this opener. I don't because I don't know. I just don't feel like it. And I feel like this wouldn't really work the way it's supposed to with the flipping, but I don't. Look, I'm trying my best, okay? But that's it for Fatebound in raids. There's nothing really much to it. It's just when are you vanishing, when are you cold-blooding. You don't want to cold-blood here, again, obvious, because this is going to edge case, so this is already going to land on its edge. Matching the flip doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so let's talk about some gear stuff. Whoops. We can talk about some gear stuff. Again, Fatebound, right? This is the dungeon one. Raid. So we have Deathstalker, we have Fatebound. Easy peasy. These are the talents that I showed off earlier. So Fatebound again, Cold Blood, blah, blah, blah. Deathstalker, you can play Arterial. Tiny Toxic is within margin, so that's all good. And then for embellishments, we're going Dawn Thread. This is Blue Silk Lining, but for crit, so good stuff. In general, you're going to want crit mastery, a little bit of haste, same as we do on live. These boots are verse. Verse aren't bad. Verse isn't a bad stat. You don't need to avoid it. So good to go. This is big haste neck. All right, verse, crit haste, haste mastery, crit mastery, crit mastery. You get the idea. Sim yourself. Item level overall, right? No need to complicate it. Seal of the Poison Pact here is good. It is not better for us than any other spec because there is a limit to how often you can proc Venomous Potential. So it's not like we can proc it more than other classes. But it's just a little bit of extra damage. This is like 1%, 1.5% damage. The stats are good on it as well, so this is a no-brainer. And then trinket-wise, we're going to be running this trinket from Grim Batal, and this trinket from, what's the name? City of Threads? Skarden, very weird. Skarden's Grace is just an on-use mastery. Just macro it into your death mark. Very simple trinket, very clean, very crisp. Then you have Sack Brood. My mouth's going funny. This is just primary stat and a little bit of extra damage. The damage here is basically nothing, I'm going to be honest. But it's haste and it's agility, so win. Passive, win, good. Some other trinkets that we can talk about. Void Reaper's Contract. We can't use the set bonus because the weapon that it's attached to is, I believe, a fist weapon. Or a mace or something, so that doesn't work. But the trinket itself is pretty okay. The Empowering Crystal here is also kind of okay, but it's random. It procs just all over the place. Kind of strange. And then the last thing, Treacherous Transmitter. This thing will proc more agility, and it might even simulate higher, depending on, you know, item level and character and stuff. But if you've ever used this thing, holy, this thing sucks. So it says receive cryptic instructions. That is one of 3 minigames. The first one is to jump 3 times. The second one is to chase down an orb, and the third one is to go run to some random spot that it marks. So once this comes off cooldown, I'll show you what it does. But I am not recommending this. I think this trinket is completely unplayable. If you guys are familiar with Witherbark Branch, it is the same concept. So right now, it procced here, right? So I have to run into this area, stand here, and then it gives me the buff. Now, the buff is only 15 seconds, so you need to time it, because your death mark is 16. So ideally, you want to have the buff up when you press death mark, or slightly after. That means that you have to pre-cast the transmitter early in your opener, and then while you're doing your opener, you need to do the task so that you get the buff right after Deathmark. It's a 130 cooldown, but you will line it up with Deathmark every 2 minutes. But, I mean, it's like just the timing alone makes this really, really hard. And Skardins, especially on Deathstalker, sims exactly the same. So Skardins here is basically equal to Treacherous Transmitter for Deathstalker, which is kind of what you want to play. Don't play this, man. I loved Witherbark Branch, but I cannot, under any circumstance, recommend anyone plays this thing. This thing is so bad. It is the stuff of nightmares. Let me see if it procs the orb. I can show you the orb. The orb is also really awful. Let's see if it gives me orb. Yeah, so the orb here starts moving around, and it's just kind of going. You need to chase it down. Once you chase it down, you get the buff. But yeah, it's rough. The trinket is really rough. Don't use it. Just don't use it. The rest of these all kind of suck. Deadeye's Spyglass is a good second option. So instead of the Sack Brood, you can get a Spyglass. This is also very strong, very good, just completely passive. And that's about all there is to it. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Let me think. Yeah. Oh, enchants and stuff. Right. So, weapon enchants. Authority of the Depths on both weapons. Easy peasy. Stormbound armor kits. This is agility and stamina. This one's weaker and it gives no stamina, and this one gives armor, which is pointless. So, take the stamina one. Stormbound, good to go. You can take whatever you want here. This is just Avoidance Leech Speed. Same thing here, Avoidance Leech Speed. Crystalline Radiance is 745 agility, whereas Storm Riders is not. So take the one with more agility. The feet stuff, again, speed, mounted speed here. Like, this is all kind of irrelevant. This one here is stamina, so this would be the one to take, in my opinion. I don't think the speed is worth it, nor the mounted speed. Take the stamina, make yourself tanky. And then because we don't have any bad stats, all of these cursed ones, don't use them. Don't use the cursed ring enchants. You get 390 crit, but at the loss of 115 haste, that is not worth it. That means you are getting a total of 275 stat, right? Like, doesn't matter what the stat is, you're getting 275 of it. Whereas this one, you're getting 315. And because our stats are so close, the cursed ring enchants, bad. You will want to use the Culminating Blasphemite here, and one of each color. Mastery is fine, haste is fine, crit is fine. Verse obviously kind of sucks, but it's only one gem, and you're getting an additional crit effect, so this is still worth it to have one of. The rest of your slots just fill with whatever, crit, haste, mast, all fine. And that is actually it. Right? Surely. No. Consumables. Wow, there's so much to talk about. Only potion. You're going to be using this all the time. Easy peasy. Then you have... I don't have them in my bag. Oh no. Oh no, I don't have them in my bag. Oh, I do. Okay. So the Alchemical Chaos Flask, also banger for us, because it's just random secondary stats. It's a lot of secondary stats, and we don't care which secondary stat this procs. So, huge. The other thing is tempered potions here gain the effects of all inactive tempered flasks, which means that using the Alchemical Flask actually gives us all 4 secondaries. versus all 3. Like, if I were to use the Crit Flask, I would only get the other 3 secondaries, whereas the Alchemical Chaos Flask means we get 4. So this is also buffing the potion. Food-wise, it doesn't matter either, just, you know, highest secondary stat here is fine. Agility Feast is fine. I think the Feast is slightly better, but that's going to be dependent on gear. So just eat Feasts, should be fine. There is a new Augment Rune, but that's the only Augment Rune that exists. So again, you don't really have much option there. And that, finally now, I think, is everything. Hopefully. I don't know. If I forgot something, this video's hella long. If I forgot something, put it down in the comments. I'll answer the comments. Maybe we'll do a part 2 if there's stuff to talk about. But for now, hopefully that covers everything. For raids, either tree. Jesus Christ. Have a good one. BIYA. Wowhead guides are going to be updated soon as well, so you can all read those and have a good time. Hopefully the expansion is a smooth launch. BIYA.